Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FSI's NASCAR DFS content. We are doing the Xfinity Contender Boats 250, 167 lap mile and a half at Homestead Speedway. I'm here with myself, TK Nation, and I'm joined with Andrew Berry, Mega Ruler 31. Mega, how are you doing this evening? And are you ready for another week of racing?
I'm ready for some normalcy. We had a super speedway, we had a road course. Now we have a half mile or 1.5 mile track. This should be, better. We'll have some dominators. We'll have, a little bit of, you know, normalcy here.
Yeah, we're getting the finishing position and the place differential on mile and a half tracks. Guys who can pass, guys who have good average run, guys who have good average finishes on these type of tracks is what we are into for our builds this week. This is a wheelhouse event for us. We love our mile and a halves. The road courses are fun to watch, and the super speedways have that extreme fluctuation in money won or money lost.
And
But
you
these
should
mile
see something like this behind me.
Yeah, exactly. These mile and a halves are, some way boring, but for the guys that do the DFS angle of it, it's kind of profitable. So, looking forward to it. With that being said, let's jump into some picks here. We're going to talk about some favorite cash plays, some value, some GBP picks. But let's start off with some of the guys up top here in this 11K range. Tyler Reddick and Noah Gragson. Let's talk a little bit about them too. And, obviously the starting position and the salary probably correlate with itself. Go ahead and elaborate a little bit as to why these guys are going to be really high owned this weekend.
Well, this is a high tire wear track, and it is also a track that has a very high groove. And Reddick and Grayson are masters of that high groove. Grayson dominated most of the races on these types of track last year, led a lot of laps, accumulated a lot of points. Reddick did it when he was in Xfinity, did it well in Cup last year. He's against stiffer competition up there, so he wasn't as successful, but definitely, really, and the fact too that they had some bad luck in the beginning of the season, and Reddick didn't really qualify for anything, so he's entered in at 38th. So there's a ton of place differential to a guy that could actually get up there and lead. It says that he's at our SS Racing, but there's a little bit of debate on that because his team hasn't been able to run yet because the Daytona they were going to try to qualify for it, but it got rained out. And then, he doesn't have his team didn't have any points, so they naturally wouldn't have qualified. So they had to join another team that had already raced to have some points so they could get into this race. So
Right.
it might say that it's one team, but it hopefully is the equipment from a different team, which is a better team and better equipment. So definitely that's why I'm locking in Reddick and Grayson. Also, like I said, he has been very good in Xfinity series in these types of tracks. He knows how to save his tires and to get out there in the long run and lead lap after lap after lap. The only thing that might trip him up a little bit is if there's a late caution or anything. And, but he did, even though they did have an overtime, I think last year at this Homestead race, he still was able to hold off the competition and pull it out.
Yeah. Gregson is probably going to be more owned, and then I would believe Reddick to be just because of what you said. I think he has more of the ability to lead laps. Reddick, with that a little bit of an unknown on that equipment, but I still think he's far too good a driver to ignore. And I think that finishing position and that place differential will be enough for cash to help you, complete that double up. But those guys are really expensive, and we're going to need some value plays. Let's talk a little bit about value. Who are you looking at to fill out some of these cash lineups and these cash builds?
Well, I'm looking down towards the bottom. JJ Yaley's also has a lot of cup experience. I'm not going to say he's necessarily really great at these, but he's starting at 39th. He's got a decent car and he's a decent driver who's got cup experience. So I think definitely that he should be able to get 10, 15 place differential points at least. His salary is only 5,700. So And looking back at some of his Xfinity days at like in these tracks, he was finishing in like the 20s. So it's not really. He had like a 14. Finish like his average running position was like in the 20s. So I mean that's
Yeah,
definitely something that's definitely favorable.
absolutely. I think one other guy that I like in this, bottom tier range is Colby Howard at 4,900. He had an average finish on these mile-and-a-half tire wear tracks of 24th. He is starting 28th, and his average run position was 20th. JD Motorsports is a team on the Xfinity circuit that houses a lot of cars. They have a lot of different drivers, and just a more known team than some of the other guys that are only running one cars. This team seemingly has some money and some equipment, so I think he's definitely viable for a decent run. He fared out pretty well in the Daytona weeks. I think 4,900 is really cheap. I think he's going to be in my cash build, so I can get both Reddick and Gregson, and maybe another guy we'll talk about here. Let's just talk about the pole sitter, Austin Cindric. He's got a really good average finish on these tracks. I think it's a 7.6. Average run was 4.9, and he had 5 wins last year. Is Cindric a must in cash? And what is the optimal strategy for Austin Cindric to dominate this race?
He's definitely playable in cash. I don't think I'm going to say he's a lock. I'd rather had the guys at the back that we previously talked to, Grayson and Reddick, with the place differential and the opportunity to get out there and lead laps. Probably just going to lead early. Mild concern is Daniel Hemrick is starting next to him on the outside pole, and he's a little bit reckless. So we've seen lots of first and second cars take each other out recently.
Yeah,
Seems like there's an epidemic of it. So,
yeah,
plus, there's a couple other guys behind them too that have really strong cars from really good teams. That if he doesn't have the right setup, again, there's no practice or anything here, so it's a guessing
yeah.
game, going by what you've known from the past, and just hopefully that it works again.
Absolutely. I think he's more GPP play in like an MME format. Like, okay, Austin Cindric's very capable of dominating any race he races in Xfinity. He's one of the best Xfinity drivers. But what you were saying, there's no practice, and there's guys with cars behind him with just as much, just as good as equipment. And all it takes is one slip and a spin the tires on a restart, and he's not able to get out front. And once you get sucked in that dirty air, it's hard for you to get back up front, especially if you don't have the right setup. So the probability of him leading maybe the first 20 laps, and then after one stop, and then being kind of sucked into the middle of the pack is pretty high. And I think taking that place differential from the other two drivers we talked about, and then maybe trying to find the salary savings on some other guys is more optimal in cash that way. But yeah, with that being said, we could talk a little GPPs here. I have some other names down. Who do you like as like your odd end GPP play in the start of the field, or in the front of the field, I should say, that's likely to try to get up to the front and lead some laps and dominate a little bit of this race?
I like Harrison Burton. He's starting third. He's a Joe Gibbs car. He comes in at 9,600, which is a little bit expensive, but it's not up in 10 or 11K like some of the other guys. He's got a 9% DNF rate, so he finishes races. He keeps it clean. He does it well, and Gibbs has really good cars, so I think he can. It's a little bit risky starting third, but I think if anything happens to Cindric, and he's the one that could potentially get out there and lead the laps early and rack up those points.
Absolutely. Another thing we had mentioned is fastest laps. With the points change this year in the NASCAR DFS, or in the DraftKings DFS format, you get a little bit more points for fastest laps. Guys that typically did well on these mile and a halfs last year were those Gibbs cars. They usually have them pretty good. coming off the hauler for at least the Xfinity series. I don't know what's going on with their Cup teams other than the Daytona Road Course dominance they showcased last week. But typically, Kyle Busch and those guys didn't really have good race cars off the hauler, but that's not usually the case in Xfinity. Gibbs looks really prepared this year, and I think guys like Brandon Jones, another guy that's going to be he's in Gibbs' car, correct? That number 18.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
19, 18. Hemrick has the 18.
Hemrick's 18. Okay, yeah. Brandon Jones at 9,300. He is starting fourth. Had an average run position of 5.4. Sixth at Homestead, and he had 3 wins last year, 12 top 10s, 8 top 5s, an average finish of 9.2. I really like Brandon Jones at 9,300. Kind of saves you 1,000 in salary that might be able to get you off of a guy from in the value range that gives you a guy more towards the middle that you feel more comfortable with, that's more capable of finishing maybe inside the top 20. Brandon Jones has just as much upside in leading this race and or just finishing inside the top 10 and logging some fastest laps. I think that's perfectly viable. I think he's going to be relatively high owned because of how well he does on tire wear tracks. He's a really good on the outside groove. He kind of fits the mold for the driver that we look at as far as this type of racetrack. Is there any other GPP plays at the top end that you're looking into heading into Saturday?
Up top, I mean,
Seems
there's
to
a
be it for
couple that
me.
you might be able to find, like Ty Dillon's up there too. He's also a Cup racer. He's also in a Gibbs car. He's starting 13th. Um,
Yeah,
it seems like he hasn't had like a ton of success in Cup, so it seems like he's moving down maybe to Xfinity a little bit to get some more experience to try to
little
find
yeah,
himself.
little reestablish in his driving. But let's talk a little bit about this mid range. I have a couple guys listed here. Ryan Sieg at 8K. I think he's a fairly decent GPP play. Sieg, he's running for, I can't remember the team name. What's the team?
RSS.
Yeah, the asset, and he had 4 top 5s and 8 top 10s last year. He actually had 77 laps, an average finish of 15.8 and an average run of 19th. I mean, it's not what I would want to pay for 8K. I think, it's a little too high, but in GPPs where maybe I fade Tyler Reddick or Gregson in one or the other, and I want to go to pivot with a Sieg type balance build. Do you think that's a formidable strategy this week? Is some as like an offset GBP?
Yeah, I see. Definitely, he's really taken some different pit strategies, and that's how he's gotten out
Yeah.
there and gotten some like lap lead points and things. He just
Hmm.
it just sometimes, like we talked about this with Byron last week, if you do it that way then and change up your pit strategy, sometimes you end up with older tires when everybody else has fresher, and then like towards the end of a stage you might just get completely blown past and go to the back. But you do crank up and earn points while you're up in front while everybody else is on older tires. So
Hmm.
but actually in that range right around there, he's starting 22nd. 25th, Alex Lab at
Hmm.
7,200. He's actually a really good play this week too. Pretty
Yeah,
sneaky.
72. That's 800 you could save in getting out. Labby runs with the JD Motorsports, correct? Or no, that's
He's
I'm trying.
DGM.
DGM. That's right. I'm learning this. I'm learning them as fast as I can. Yeah, Alex Labby was played quite a bit last year in our core lineups. I remember the name, and I think he's a fairly decent shot. One guy we were talking about before we got on, we were talking about Barry for the number 8 car, Junior Motorsports.
No
This was
relation.
a no relation. Yeah, 7,800. Hemrick, Dale Jr. This is kind of like a classic car here. Does he have any magic? And what can you tell us about Josh Berry?
I believe he was like he raced late model cars, so he has like a little bit of Xfinity experience, but it's mostly in a different type of car outside of Xfinity. But he's got talent, he's got a good team, and he's got a good car, and it seems like he's one that could be a rising star. So keep your eye on him. At 78, that's pretty low. A couple weeks from now, if he does catch on and start turning heads, like I can't believe, I don't even want to know what Ty Gibbs's
Yeah.
salary is going to be the next time he's out. But I think, I'm not saying that he's in the same class or same breath as him, but I think he's definitely somebody who has some talent that you're going to see come along. And potentially next year, if some of these guys move up to Cup, he might end up in a premium ride in Xfinity.
I agree. That's good
Not that
analysis
he's
too.
not in one, he's a really good situation now too.
Yeah, the 8 car's really good car in the Xfinity series. But I think he needs to just get some experience, and a track like this early on is going to help him. GBP flyer I would put on him. Yeah, the Ty Gibbs story. Wow, that was fun to watch. What an amazing race, and I was loving that day. Last Saturday, that was fun. I
You know
can't
what's
wait to
really
see him.
frustrating about that was I spent the whole race cheering for Noah Gragson to get back on the lead lap
Yeah,
after he starts the pit, and he can't even get out of like pit row to get into the starting lineup because they replaced their carburetor or some kind of part.
yeah. The no,
Alternator,
it
something
was the
mechanical.
head gasket. I think
Yeah.
they changed the whole head
Yeah.
gasket.
Okay. So he's down like 4 laps. Okay. And every single lap, like caution, he's like, okay, he made up 1 lap. He made up 1 lap. And then there's like a car gets lapped right in front of him. So that car
Yeah.
gets a lucky dog and he doesn't. And finally, the final caution, he's on the lead lap and they go through and he's carving through cars. He comes from like 30th up to like 14th. And then he gets into a wreck being too aggressive. And by thousands of dollars I'm winning turns into a couple hundred, but I'm still happy.
Yes, that was tilting to see, and I feel so bad for you. I was in the same boat with Gregson. I think we all were in the industry, but what you had to go with Gregson was like the optimal lineup, and he just that those burns are gonna haunt you forever. But you've had some really good success in the first 2 weeks, a lot of profit, and hopefully there's a big one this weekend. Like I said earlier in the show, this is our bread and butter, and we're hoping to bring some really good green screens this weekend. Now, is there anything left to add to this video before
Yeah,
we
there's
say goodbye?
one other big GPP play that I really like is David Starr. He's starting dead last 40th, so he
There you go.
cannot lose any place differential points. Nowhere to go but up. He is on a smaller team. His equipment is okay. He raced 9 races last year, and he only DNF'd one of them. So he only
There
has
you go.
11%. So that's good for me. Like out of 9 races, that's a good sample size. He's not going to start in park. It doesn't look like he's
Right.
going to have major mechanical problems. So if he gets up 5, 6 spots, he's also 5,000, almost
Yeah.
close to minimum price. He's another one. If I pair him with Yaley, I can get 3 studs in my
hmm
lineup.
That's the stars and scrub build. I think is going to be pretty popular this week, and getting these value plays is so critical, especially missing and dodging those starting parks or the guys that have the mechanical issues early. So identifying those guys for you is going to be a big advantage.
And we might
And
start
as
seeing that soon because the
yeah,
Daytona races, like people are invested in the 500s, like, or not 500, but just the speedway at Daytona is like something that people are fighting to get into. And the road race was a novelty. So nobody's going to like start that race and, not
right.
race it. But you're going to get to the point where these smaller teams are just going to come to the track, collect the paycheck, run around a couple laps, and then safely
Yep.
park the car and go on to fight for a track that they know that they can do better on.
Exactly. Yeah, we see that all the time in Xfinity. And if you want to get a chance to get into the Discord channel, you can find us on our Twitter handle at FSI underscore DFS. You can get the projections from Mega, and you can get core lineups from the both of us probably before Saturday at this rate. I'm loving how the schedule comes out earlier. we're able to break these slates down and get you the video. And if you will, please like and subscribe to the channel, and you will be able to tune in to us tomorrow or Friday night, or well, tomorrow's Friday.
Yeah.
I can tell you about my week this week. But yeah, and tune in tomorrow or Saturday morning, and we will have a cup video up for the Sunday's NASCAR race. Yeah, that'll do it. And appreciate you guys listening, and have a good day.